And welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Geek Centurions. It's me, boy Eli.
It's me, Joe.
And we're here to talk about some interesting conversations that have been going on within the Marvel movie department. Joe, you know nothing of Kamala Khan, right?
The only thing I know about Kamala Khan, aka the Miss Marvel, is from a little bit of the games, i.e., Ultimate Alliance 3 and then the Avengers game.
Mm-hmm. So what can you tell me that's different from that and the show that's coming out soon?
Well, I mean, I've only seen like the initial trailer, but it definitely to describe Kamala Khan, she's an Inhuman. She has stretchy arm stuff, that kind of thing. But in the show, it definitely seems like they're leaning more into like I don't know, some sort of particle stuff with her hands or something. Like she has like a special gauntlet or whatever, like a wrist thing,
Yes.
and that's where she gets some of her powers from.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people are like wondering because I think I know what we're leading into. Like, there's this whole conversation about
Changes.
changes to like just Kamala's power set
Mm-hmm.
to like make it not be Inhumans.
Yeah. And yet we had that big thing with Doctor Strange Multiverse Madness.
Where we did get like Black Bolt show up,
Yeah.
who is King of the Inhumans and was played by the same actor as in the Inhumans TV show that came out like a long time ago, probably at this point. Which I mean didn't do well, obviously because you don't hear about Inhumans much in the MCU.
No.
But it was very much tied more with the Agent Shield stuff, and they were handling Inhuman stuff a lot on the show side. And it's it's certainly an interesting thing that's going on that we're of the conversation of like, okay, is she still going to be an Inhuman? Are we just changing up that whole plot line? I mean, I know there's some theories that I think I remember hearing one theory that maybe they're changing the power set just so that they don't confuse her powers with Mr. Fantastic's powers. Because, we are getting a Fantastic Four movie, and, his main gimmick is he's stretchy arms.
Yeah, and while I understand that, I think it's also very silly.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a very silly one because, I mean, when you really think about it, there's like, I mean, let's look at Iron Man in that whole thing, for instance, right? We have Tony Stark as Iron Man has an iron suit. Rhodey gets his own suit. He's War Machine. Pepper gets her own suit, becomes Rescue, and we're getting an Iron Heart show, which is about a girl who makes her own Iron Man suit.
And there's also Iron Lad.
And there's a ton of Iron people running around.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like, and obviously, also we're getting a She-Hulk show, so that's a second Hulk. And who knows, maybe we'll one day get Red Hulk, even though I know you're very iffy on if we're going to get a Red Hulk. Knowing
The actor did pass away. Yeah, you forgot that, didn't you?
Yeah. But yeah, it's there's a lot of
Why?
yeah, I guess it's like why, because I mean, like, at the end of the day, there's a lot of like characters that have like similar power sets coming through. In theory.
And oftentimes they're significant or like important to that character.
Yeah, and to be fair, at least when it comes across to the games, at least Kamala Khan can do more, like does a lot more, like just she kind of expands her body more than stretch it. Obviously, like she can stretch her arms a bit. And,
Yeah.
like, but it seems like she can also just like make her body bigger. Mr. Fantastic only ever really does stretchy stuff. He never really becomes like a size of a building, kind of.
Yeah. Granted, Mr. Fantastic was always more of the science man.
He's also the science man.
He comes up with shit.
He invents shit. He's always thinking up all the gadgets and stuff for the Fantastic Four. Yeah. It's clearly two different characters that have like vaguely similar powers. So I mean, that's why I always thought that whole theory is a little misleading.
And I think it's also just because like a lot of people just have a hard time doing stretch powers, like in live action. It just looks very unnatural.
Well, I mean, it's a very unnatural thing to do,
Yeah. Like, imagine Dawson doing all the stuff he does.
Or yeah. There's just a lot. Yeah, it does look weird, probably in live action to do stretchy stuff.
And I think, and there's a lot of conversations going around, like a lot of interpretations of her powers. Like, what does it mean to have those kind of powers? What does it mean for that character, for that story plot? Because so I have the first book right over there, right, and I've read the first Kamala Khan book. I know what's it about, and her powers, while being essentially stretch powers, do kind of like make have an interesting moment, and it's something I don't think they're going to be able to do with within the TV show, right?
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that in a minute, but essentially it's the idea from especially from the person who created Kamala Khan was that they didn't want her powers to be pretty, and now she has what essentially is pretty powers because it's cool hard light construct kind of shit, almost Green Lantern like,
In a way, yes.
which is like really weird. And I don't know. Like I'm giving him a chance, and in my personal opinion, I'm giving them a chance. Let's see how this works out, right?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not that much into the Kamala Khan character. I mean, I get why she can be seen as a bit popular. Yeah, she's basically like an in-universe fanboy of all the Marvel stuff or whatever. I don't know. I just never really like. I think her character's fine. Like,
Granted, you haven't read the books.
I haven't read any of her books or whatever.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen of her, she's fine.
So it's funny that we talk about that, and I'm gonna start. And I mentioned earlier that I'll talk about this. That some people have interpreted her powers, and so yeah, one thing that also needs to be found known is that she is a Muslim American. She is of the Muslim faith, and there is a bit of issues in the book. There's stuff that is addressed that in the books, right? And I don't know whether or not they'll address that on the show. I don't know if it's like gonna be a thing for it. I doubt it because stuff like that's very like, hard to promote.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that it's probably gonna be a very touchy subject.
No. It's just
but
that it might not garner the reaction most people would want.
Yeah. There's probably gonna be a segment of the audience that's like, keep this religion bullshit out of my superhero shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not Christian anyway. But shows like Daredevil did it good. Other shows I can't really think about, but that are the comic based ones. Daredevil did it right. But essentially, that's an aspect that I'm wondering if they're gonna do or not. I'm not gonna be surprised if they don't. But to her powers, I think that's one thing is that some people have been talking about how. And granted, this is interpretation, right? Like, I'm not saying you are wrong. I'm not saying that what I interpreted from this moment in the book as wrong as my thought on it. But it's like it's your interpretation. That's what a lot of stories are. They're all meant for interpretation. What can you get out of the story, right?
Yeah.
In the book, she essentially turns herself into Miss Marvel because her powers allow her to do that because like she tried to save someone and she sort of like thought like what would Miss Marvel now at the time Captain Marvel would do, right?
Yeah.
And so she imagined herself as this person, and then later on her journey was to her become her own superhero.
Yeah.
Kind of shit, right? And it's a very like interesting moment because it's like talking about colors, skin, and tones. Like you can go all with that, right? You can interpret that as many ways as you can, and I'm glad that there's discussions about that. It's cool. It's a cool discussion to have, right? And I understand why you as a person are upset that they don't want to do that or decide to change that, right?
Yeah.
You get why now. You get to understand no reason why as to why them changing the powers into something like that, you know, makes sense why you're upset.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a lot of discourse like that online, and I totally get it. I'm not against it. But for me, I'm always like, well, wait and see how it's done.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can still do that even without having the same kind of power, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's always execution. Execution matters, right? Like,
Even if it's not a 1-to-1,
yeah, because we have like a ton of like Marvel stuff that isn't like 1-to-1,
or even like DC stuff.
Yeah, like, not it's all adaptation at the end of the day, and it's more of like executing the feeling of the storylines and the characters and their actions rather than like making it 1-to-1. Because honestly, like, as much as like comic book fans, or at least the ones that are like super vocal about like, no, it has to be exactly like the comics, you know, it's like it can't be done. It like logistically can't be done, and realistically, yeah, some shit in the comics just doesn't translate well into the format of live action. You know?
Yes, of course. And like, so like, there's another one that I think I find it funny that I compare it to. It's that they changed in the Raimi movies, right? For Spider-Man, in reality he doesn't have organic webs. He has web cartridges, all that kind of stuff, and so them making him more organic was kind of like their interpretation of like, or like the way they see it as a puberty kind of shit. The awkwardness of puberty, the grossness of it and stuff like that. I'm like, that's a cool theory, but also most people know they just did that because it's easier to explain than just
Well, I mean, I think I always assumed it was just because like, yeah, probably just easier, and two, that like, hey, if it's a radioactive spider that just makes him like have spider powers, why not have him like one of his powers legit just be him shooting out webs,
right? Because that's what would happen.
I mean, yeah, in terms of like like a sci-fi kind of thing, you know. I mean, yeah, sure, like Peter inventing the web shooters definitely shows his intelligence, right?
Right, and there's people who didn't like the organic webbing, because like it took away him building his web shooters.
Yeah,
because like that's a very important aspect of Peter. That shows his intelligence, how smart he is, how like much creativity the man has.
It also should. It also, you could argue that it also takes away a bit of the tension in fights, because if he has like regular web shooters, like he's gonna run out eventually, and he needs to like like reload essentially.
Yeah.
But if he has organic web shooters, he has no reason to worry about ever running out, unless of course it's like a mental thing, and then he has like a.
No, but like I totally get why they would do that, right? For something like Spider-Man, even for Kamala Khan, and it all depends on execution. But at the same time, in most comics, her powers are important to her. Like you can't deny that. They are an important aspect of the character. They touch a thing. They touch an aspect of her that help her with her character, right? And them changing that is totally understandable. As to why people are upset. I'm not taking that away from people. I am like I'm hearing you, and I understand you. And the reason I say that is because supposedly they're doing another change to a character, and this one for me is way more contrived, and for me feels less genuine. And that is the whole Namor subject. Because supposedly Namor's coming to the MCU. He's showing up in Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, and they're changing his backstory. So aside from him being like the first confirmed mutant, which I think they still might do, my man is from Atlantis, right? He has a very similar backstory to Aquaman. He rules over Atlantis. He's the first mutant, and stuff like that, right? And so they changed it. Reportedly, they changed it so they wouldn't be too much like Aquaman, even though obviously Namor came out first.
Yeah.
And now he has a more Central American background, and from what it sounds like, it seems like it's still very much Aquaman, where his dad and mom are like from two different worlds and stuff like that. But it also seems like he's very inspired by sort of Aztec stuff. And for me, I don't like that. That doesn't sound like Namor to me. That sounds like a totally different character.
Yeah, and I get what you mean by that. Because I think I think it's just sort of the I guess the reality of like, hey, Aquaman came out, like they made an Aquaman movie first, and he is, I guess, probably more popular
Mm.
in the wider pop culture landscape than Namor is.
Yeah.
So yeah, despite the fact that Namor came out first, the people would see him as like an Aquaman ripoff essentially. So yeah, I get why they would want to change his backstory. I guess, or at least his origins not being related to Atlantis or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do think it is a little. I guess the word would be pandering.
Yes.
To like just straight up like alter his origins to like include a lot of Central American themes.
Now, granted, this is a rumor. This isn't confirmed.
I mean, yeah.
And think about how many times has Marvel people have said, "Oh, they're gonna have this in the next Marvel movie," and it doesn't really happen. Like, look at the fucking leaks or the supposed leaks at this point, the deconfirmed leaks for Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're gonna get Hulk, we're gonna get Spider-Man, not just Hulk. I'm talking about like Ang Lee's Hulk, and it's like, what? And like other stuff, this person showing up, this person showing up. It's gonna have this, and that, and like you go and see the movie. Oh, it's none of that. It is none of that at all.
And then they argue it's like, oh, it was because they cut the movie down to 2 hours. All that 30-minute stuff would have had all the stuff in it. No, I definitely agree. I definitely understand it is rumored.
Yeah.
About all that stuff. With Namor, it's all like rumors at this point. And to be fair, like I guess I understand why it's probably taking off like that, because quite frankly, we know absolutely nothing about the new Black Panther movie, other than that
certain
it's
problems.
Like, I mean, yeah, like it's obviously Chadwick Boseman died, and they're not recasting T'Challa, so it's more of less of a Black Panther. Like I think I don't know, I think apparently they may have wanted to just straight up just been like, okay, sure, he's the new Black Panther, but yeah, like I think they were supposed to be saying that like Shuri's supposed to be like maybe the new Black Panther, but I think they changed the plans because the actress for Shuri kind of like
doesn't like the idea, and either that or being very problematic.
Yeah, which is I guess kind of funny when you think about it.
Yeah.
Considering I not to get too political, I guess, if you want to say it's political, but the fact that the lady playing Shuri is supposed to be, Shuri's supposed to be like one of the smartest people on the planet, and yet the actress for Shuri is very anti-vaccine, is very ironic in my opinion. But that's besides the point. Yeah, like we don't know anything, and that movie's supposed to come out this year, and we still don't have a trailer for it.
It got pushed back, actually.
Wait, yeah, but didn't get pushed back. It got pushed back to next year. Or?
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess that makes more sense. But yeah, still, we don't have a trailer for it. It comes out next year. Like that's probably like the one Marvel movie I can think of that's had this amount of development troubles. Like I guess the only one that that comes close to that amount of development troubles was like the original was Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Well, that was because Edgar Wright was scheduled to direct, but he was very much like, I don't really want to, make it part of the MCU. And Kevin Feige's like, but that's the whole point. That's the whole reason. And then obviously there's a fallout there. I think it was probably amicable because, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would have been, like the two sides ended up hating each other or whatever. And we got a pretty decent Ant-Man movie out of it anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, more to the point. The fact that this Namor rumor is taking off is definitely, I think, one. Yeah, it does show like just how much we don't know about the Black Panther movie.
Yeah.
And also, if it it also shows just people like, not to say that people don't like radical changes to characters.
No. I think some character changes are very necessary for some characters. Like some of them work better in the comics, and some of them like took a while for them to work to be in the comics, right?
Yeah.
Like, who's probably a good example? Well, I don't know how they're gonna introduce this character in the movies, but they have confirmed Silk will be a character in the Into the Spider-Verse movies. The one with Miles. She did start off as a very questionable kind of character. She was like the writer had this weird thing about making her have her and Peter have this like hormonal reaction to each other where they constantly need to like kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And and the fact that she was Asian made her like a very stereotypical Asian role. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
And so thankfully like some other writers came in and like took over for that character and like changed her for the better and made her like much more of a likable character in my opinion. Not to say I didn't like her when she was first introduced. I thought it was pretty funny whenever they get in the moment, Peter's roommate would be like, "Hey," the water gun, like a cat. It was pretty funny. It's a little demeaning, but it's pretty funny if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, stop it, kind of stuff. But and granted, they're not gonna go with that in the movies, obviously. But with something like Namor making him sort of Aztec inspired, while I'm not against like more representation, especially for people like that look like us. It feels very kind of tacked on,
especially when you can consider the fact that there's other, like if you wanted that type of representation, you just put a character, just bring in a character that is that group. I mean, it's potentially possible that the second Ghost Rider, right? Robbie, right?
No, he's saying like the. I don't remember what number he is, but he is not the second. It's technically Johnny Blaze. It would be the second because it was the Phantom Rider, and I'm complicating it too much. Basically, yeah, Robbie Reyes.
Yeah, like I mean, he's appeared in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, and I mean,
and they're not afraid to go back to the shows.
Yeah, they're definitely not afraid to go back to the shows and bring characters that people that like that Marvel knows that like they're our fan favorite characters, especially since we now know that the Daredevil Netflix show will be getting a continuation on Disney Plus.
I'm so hyped for that.
I mean, I'm pretty.
It's not gonna be the same though.
It doesn't feel like I don't think it's gonna be the same unless they get like the same creative team behind Daredevil back to do it.
It's not.
But I mean, obviously, like I guess the other thing is like I mean I know people are gonna be like it's gonna be less violent or whatever, but at the same time Disney Plus did introduce age restricting stuff because of like bringing in the Netflix Marvel shows, so maybe it'll still retain that I don't know. Listen, we got to see who's behind the people behind the
shit. A lot of people are not excited though.
Yeah, I think I can. It's very like cautiously optimistic because the Daredevil Netflix show is definitely hailed up, and I think correctly so, as one of the best live action Marvel shows.
Well, not just Marvel shows, just one of the best shows in general.
Yeah,
like that was just a really good show.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess coming back to my point, yeah, like you could just bring in Robbie Reyes. Into the MCU and have that sort of representation. I mean, heck, I mean, if we're getting a Blade movie in the pipeline eventually, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we did get like some form of Ghost Rider showing up.
Well, there have been people talking about like, oh, they could do a Midnight Suns movie, with like all the dark edgy kind of characters. Which who knows, that'd be cool. But you're also forgetting America Chavez.
Yeah. Also, yeah, America Chavez, who was introduced very recently in the Doctor Strange movie. That's another representation point there. So Marvel clearly, there's clearly enough like Hispanic or Latino or Latina characters to pull from the MCU from the comics into the MCU, and they already
and even if you wanted to change race bend, I'm not against it. It just this one feels very like we're just doing it to do it, right?
Yeah, like obviously, I think off the top of my head, I think the last like I guess the last discussion of something like this was the Fantastic Four remake in 2015.
Yeah.
Johnny being played by Michael B. Jordan, which I mean, to be fair, I don't think I had a problem with that at all.
No, I didn't have a problem with it either.
Yeah, and I think Michael B. Jordan played a solid Johnny Storm.
He could have been a great Johnny Storm.
Yeah, I mean, considering what that movie turned out to be, huh?
Yeah.
Although I guess it did turn to be like my only problem with that casting decision was why do you keep Sue White then? Because they're brother and sister.
Well, she's adopted.
Yeah, they had to write a whole thing around it.
Yeah, and it was weird.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Yeah, like I remember watching it. It's like, especially because like they's like, yeah, you're my adopted sister, but there's never really a familial bond between dad, brother, and sister, which is like really weird.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, if you didn't tell me they were siblings, I wouldn't have known, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I know they're siblings because like I read comics. I know the Fantastic Four. I know Sue and Johnny are siblings. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. It's just like it feels because like you wouldn't know they're siblings. Not from like color base, but it's more like they don't act like siblings.
Yeah, like if you watch that movie, they don't come across like that. But yeah. So yeah, I guess with the whole Namor thing, it is just it's all rumors.
There's nothing really confirmed about it, but like I mean, some people say like, oh, here's an image. I'm like, but yeah, that's gonna be fabricated. I mean, most of the information that tends to come out with this is very echo chambery, so like you can't really tell which is real and which isn't.
Mm-hmm.
So like people are probably just hyping this up for Namor, and Namor doesn't even show up, and Namor might not even be like a Hispanic dude.
Yeah, it's just it feels kind of. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like it's very much like we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely agree that if it does come to pass like that, I mean, I would probably be very sort of iffy on the decision.
Yeah.
It just I don't know. Like it feels super weird to me for that to be a thing.
Yeah.
Especially, I guess. Because I guess when you consider, I don't know, I'm gonna bring up a bit of a tangent here. If they wanted to make him different from Aquaman, I mean, look at the Eternals, right?
Can go on.
Like a lot of people were making comparisons. I guess that's probably maybe the reason because a lot of people were making comparisons about certain Eternals and their moves. And and their power sets.
Yeah.
Comparing them to Justice League characters, i.e., Icarus to Superman. I think what was it? Akari.
Yeah.
It's a Flash. Athena to Wonder Woman, obviously. Yeah, but I mean, out of all those, those like the only three that sort of even have like positions to other Justice League members.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could argue Festus and Cyborg, but I feel like that's a bit reaching.
That's a bit, yeah.
That's a bit reaching. And even then, like, technically the Eternals themselves aren't even like, I mean, some people would, from the movie, they're like, oh, they're just they're DC character ripoffs. Like, technically, there are DC ripoffs in the Marvel universe, but those aren't the Eternals.
Well, they were made by Jack Kirby, and they're ripoffs of a different kind of ripoff.
Yeah,
ripoffs from like
the New Gods.
And all that stuff, and like because like Jack Kirby wanted to make the New Gods in Marvel, but he had a falling out with them. He went to go meet the New Gods in DC.
That's where we get Darkseid and all that stuff.
Yeah, and all that cool stuff. And that eventually did another fallout, which when we came back to Marvel and did the Eternals.
And which is like, their version of New Gods.
Yeah, and like Jack Kirby is gonna write stuff like that because that's what Jack Kirby likes to write. And so I mean, there's nothing else to say about that. It just happened to be like very similar. It's like, and you'll see this a lot in comics. Like a lot of writers tend to write the same kind of thing because they enjoy those themes or those kinds of characters. And really, I guess you can say that with any writer. Like one of my favorite writers, Donny Cates, like he writes a lot about family stuff, like father and child.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's stuff that I've noticed and I'm down with it. It's an engaging story and I'm for it. But yeah, no, there's always been analogs between one to two from both companies, either deliberately or unintentionally. Like most people don't know this, but there were a lot of Superman ripoffs in the beginning of like comics.
Captain Marvel himself, not the Captain Marvel from
Marvel, but
Marvel.
The OG Captain Marvel.
Shazam was basically a Superman ripoff.
They literally had a legal court case over this.
Yeah, we're like, the Superman creators like, hey, that's too much like Superman. You keep him out of here. You hear me?
Yeah, no, and literally there's a reason why there was that whole like argument about like, wait, who's Captain Marvel? Is it Marvel from like Marvel or like Captain Marvel from like DC? Who owns the name? It's because of that whole stuff. Like literally the Superman character has been ripped off so many times and deconstructed so many times and so many other things. So it's like not unlikely for people to not understand like, yeah, no, these characters are meant to be the same. And like you still have that now with like The Boys, Homelander,
or Invincible, Omni-Man.
Yeah. And like so many others. Marvel has like at least 2, maybe 3 different.
Heck, there was that fucking movie Brightburn, which is basically
Superman,
yeah.
If he was evil.
Which, I'm gonna be honest, another side tangent. Can we stop having evil Superman like rip-off stories?
Yeah,
like
I'm tired of it.
Listen, I get it.
It's a very cynical thing.
It's a very cynical, like, oh, if we had a super-powered alien that basically just does whatever, has all the powers or whatever, he would totally just, do whatever the fuck he wants and just kill everybody, right? I mean,
no.
And it's like, yeah, that's if you want to look at it a very, cynical way, but so many people have done, like, I swear to God, I feel like so many people have done that same old, like, yeah, what if we have a Superman character, but he's evil?
Yeah, he's works for the Communist Party.
He becomes a dictator after Lois Lane dies and kills the Joker.
And whatever they do with Homelander, Omni-Man really isn't that much bad. And so,
well, I think Omni-Man's probably the one exception because I feel, just from what I've seen a bit of Invincible, like it feels like he's a bit more conflicted about the stuff he does. You know what I mean?
He is. But like, yeah, no, it's like everyone's like, oh, he would definitely be able to... No. Fuck you, character from Kill Bill 2 who thinks that's how Superman is. Like, no.
Bill, explaining like, oh yes, Clark Kent is what Superman thinks of us humans, and it's like, shut the fuck up, Bill. You don't know anything.
You don't know shit.
Yeah.
And granted, maybe that's like the genius writing of
Tarantino. Yeah.
Or like that's maybe actually what he actually thinks. I don't know.
No.
It could be read either or. But people tend to forget Superman's a good person because he was taught to be a good person.
Yeah.
He was raised with values and stuff. Like he's not just he is a person born on Earth. He was raised as a human.
Yeah.
He was taught to be human. He wants of anything else to be human. Yeah. And he will die protecting this world, his home, from anything. That is Superman.
Yep.
Zack Snyder. I'm just kidding.
But yeah. I mean, at the
But,
end of the day,
yeah, no, like, look, people aren't going to complain too much about characters being too similar. In the case of Namor, right? It's not going to be a big problem. If you see this as an opportunity to make a moment to be like, we can add diversity, sure, fine. I'm not against it, really. For me, it feels a little, like you said, pandering. But if you execute it in a way where I'm fine with it, I'm fine with it, dude. I'm just gonna say that right now.
yeah, I to circle it all back, execution is what matters. Like, the intent, obviously you can understand the intent of a decision, but it's the execution of that said decision that really makes all the difference. Like if you can land the execution of a change like that and get it over with most audiences, then you've succeeded essentially. And if if no one really cares about it, or it falls flat on its face, then it's like you've executed that poorly. And even though the decision was probably done with the best intentions, it's executed poorly, and you're just sort of left with kind of like with mud in your face, and yeah, that's kind of how I think the rumors about Namor seems to be, to me anyway. It just seems like like if the rumors are true, it seems like they're trying to do it out of one, just to like differentiate from Aquaman, which again I feel like most people don't care.
Yeah.
Like I think there's gonna be like one or two like people that are like, huh, like it's just rip off Aquaman, like but most people, it's like as long as the character's cool and interesting and like fun to watch on screen, then you're like, I don't really care. It's still a cool character. And yeah, why not have an Aquaman in the MCU? Like your own your version of Aquaman in the MCU. Right?
Yeah, just because they have a similar story doesn't mean that they make them the same. Go back to your tangent, right? Captain Marvel and Superman are meant to be, or designed the same, meant to be the same. But Shazam is not Superman.
No, like the main obviously difference is that Shazam is a kid who can become, this, he is the wish fulfillment personified.
Yes.
Instead of like, oh, I wish I could be Superman kind of thing. It's like, oh, I can be Superman.
Yeah.
And honestly, at the same time, like, I feel like, and just to add further on to the whole, like, I don't think anybody cares about like if characters are similar or not. People are gonna just find like similarities and make those comparisons anyway. Like, if so many people, I feel like, love to make the comparison that Iron Man and Batman are basically duos of each other, right? Even though like the only thing that they share is that they're billionaire playboys.
That's it. It's so thin lined.
Yeah,
I remember this is back when Kellen was on the show, on the podcast. He was like, "Oh, Batman and Superman, they're the same. Captain America, they're the same." I'm like, they're not.
Yeah, that too, right? Like some people like Captain America is like the Superman of the Marvel universe. Like, not really. Like, if you're talking about morals, maybe, but like,
they're two different people.
They're two different people.
Yeah, because he's like the patriotic American. I'm like, that's not what they are though. Superman is it does
I mean, he does do the whole like true justice American way, but like
he stopped saying the American way a long time ago.
And also probably, I think they even made it a plot point where he revoked his U.S. citizenship just because he was
they did.
Like, I'm starting to feel like this U.S. country isn't doing stuff that I think is worth,
Yeah, yeah, and like Captain America is more of like, I know I'm for the dream, and that's what I am for. I am not a politician. I'm not doing all this. I am doing what I feel America should do. I will not support this, whatever kind of stuff, right? That's what he is. And like I said, that's just normal. Like, you're right. People are just going to make the comparisons. But if you were to take Aquaman and Namor, Aquaman's more fantasy dude, and Namor's just a straight up asshole.
Yeah, like that's sort of the I think like they're like two dudes that live under the water that are, I guess, like to dress in very fishy attire, but Aquaman has a bit more of like
He's a noble man.
yeah, he has nobility, fantasy stuff going on with his stuff, and Namor is a straight up anti-hero for the most part.
He is. When I say he's an asshole, he is an asshole.
Yeah.
My God, there are times where I'm just like, fucking Namor. Oh my God. Like there was a funny moment in the recent comics where it was Doom's wedding and Doom invited the Fantastic Four, Black Panther, Namor, and all these other people. And before they say the I do's, the soon-to-be Mrs. Doctor Doom was like, I can't. I'm sorry. I had to tell you the truth. I was intimate with Johnny. And everyone's like, gasp. Well, Namor's like, like he's having a fun time.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Namor is definitely going to be that guy. Where he's sort of like, Namor, read the room. All right? It's right.
Fuck that.
It's like, what? It's hilarious. Keep going. I love what's going on right now.
This is so much better than a fucking wedding.
Yo, Thing, hand me some popcorn. I gotta watch this go down.
Exactly. That's what would happen. That's what would happen. Namor is I like Namor, but I'm also saying Namor's a fucking asshole.
He's I mean, if anything, the reason Marvel would want to add Namor is that way you get that bad boy, the pretty bad boy into the MCU, and women would be, like, oh my God.
the new Loki.
Yeah, the new Loki. Yeah, exactly.
That's what he is. That's going to be the new Loki.
Not in terms of, like just being chaos for chaos sake, kind of thing, right? But very much like, I'm just an asshole, and you can't do anything about it.
Yep, can't do anything about it. And that's kind of what Namor is, because people don't... Yeah, and, like, look, people are going to be like, oh, they're just the same, right? Like, no, man. Aquaman is a cool dude. Namor's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Fuck. And he's always banging something.
I mean, like I said, he's a pretty bad boy. He's gonna,
Yeah.
Women will... he makes women swoon, and men... despise him for being such bastard.
Also, man, he'll bang a half fish woman.
Namor don't care.
Namor don't care.
Yeah,
he's an asshole.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I think I think I've said this more than enough times. I think I need to. It's all about execution, and also it's still a rumor, and we still haven't seen jack shit from Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So we have.
Now, I'll just say this: if Namor is the villain, it'd be really weird. Well, I know I just said he's an asshole and shit, but like considering the situation with the story, to say that he's the main villain is just a weird thing to do, right?
A little bit, I would say. Yeah, like I guess it like the only explanation is I mean, obviously there was a line from Endgame I remember of like Okoye talking about like, oh, there's like this underwater disturbances or whatever, blah 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 blah, and Black Widow's like, it's just like a underwater earthquake, don't worry about it, like you need to focus on maintaining Wakanda or whatever. So I could imagine like that was like, I mean, obviously a lot of people were imagining like, oh, that's Namor.
The people who don't read the books.
Yeah, like, because I mean, from how Marvel likes to work when it comes to like setting things up, they kind of do it like they do it vague enough so that what seems like a setup works out later on,
Yeah, remember in Iron Man 2 where they hinted at Wakanda?
Yeah,
but they never addressed Wakanda until like way later, until
they needed like to until they actually were like, okay, we're gonna set up Black Panther. Let's actually mention Wakanda in Avengers 2 and Vibranium, and all that stuff. Like, it's not to say that Wakanda, they weren't like, oh, doesn't exist in our minds until we make it, but it's more like, since the first Captain America, it's like, oh, this shield's made of vibranium. It's from this this far off country in Africa or someplace, and it's like, oh, that's Wakanda, and it's like, yeah, but we're not gonna mention anything else with that. Then there's this, the thing in Iron Man 2 where there's like a little hint at it, and it's like, until fully, and then a little bit more in Avengers 2 about like actually like going to get vibranium from Wakanda until finally we get Black Panthers in Civil War.
Yeah, it's like not unheard of, not impossible, but to add on to both, we're at the wait and see the execution. I understand why people are upset about the Kamala Khan thing, and hopefully they do it in a way where it's best for everybody. Namor, we don't know. It's rumors. It feels very like weird to change so much about that character though, especially his like origins, right? Granted, he may still act like the same Namor that I've just talked about in the last few minutes, but we'll wait and see. And it's all up in the air and all dependent on execution.
If anything, if the rumors are true, then how is a character from like a Central America themed background doing in Africa?
I don't know.
It's just weird, right?
Well, he's also kind of like a bit of immortal.
I guess. I don't know. I guess the other thing about like them saying that they're still gonna keep him as the first mutant.
Yeah. Well, supposedly.
I mean, to be fair, the whole term of first mutant has always been fucking vague. Because you can apply it to Namor, because he was the first one that appeared in comics. You can apply it to Apocalypse, who's technically, canonically the first mutant or something. I don't know. I don't know. It's all kinds of funky, dunky stuff. But yeah, all I can say is, if they still like are gonna keep Kamala Khan in a mutant and Inhuman, do you think we might get like a character from the Inhuman show pop up?
The wait and see.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have to say on the subject, right?
Yeah, no, I keep trying to see if there's anything more about I can talk about, but I got nothing.
All right, well.
Yeah, no, that's about it. And guys, if you like what you heard, be sure to follow us on all social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Geek Centurions. We're most active on Instagram. And if you'll find a link tree on there that gives you links to all the podcast sites we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, all that good stuff. And a link to the YouTube for all your audio listeners out there who want to put a face to the voice. You'll find us there. And be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon, all that good stuff. And we do have a link to the Patreon where you can support us any form of way. And our thank you is always being gratified. And yeah, that's about it. That's the episode for the day. Yeah, hopefully we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wait and see.
Wait and see.
On all this stuff because even though we're starting up the Marvel cycle, there's still a lot to discuss about rumors and stuff. Even though I personally don't like to look into it because I feel like anytime I look into rumors, the smallest chance that it is true, I feel like I've spoiled myself, and that's why I like to go in the dark.
Yeah. And you guys have a good one. Peace.